My father was a police officer. One morning, he was acting strange. I watched as he walked into the kitchen, wearing his uniform, headed for the coffee maker on the counter. He poured some into his favourite blue ceramic mug before sitting down across from me on the small, round wooden table. He brought the steaming blue mug to his lips. The smell of fresh, hot coffee filled my nostrils. It wasn't long before I noticed the bags under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Taking occasional sips from his coffee, he numbly stared out the window to the backyard. His dark, brown eyes seemed distant and filled with concern. "Dad, are you okay?" I asked worriedly. The words seemed to make him snap from whatever trance he was in. "I'm fine, kiddo," he sighed. "Just eat your breakfast." It was more than clear that something was wrong, but I knew my dad. If he didn't tell me after I asked the first time, then there'd be no point in asking again. So I just nodded and went on to pour some more cereal into my bowl. As a couple minutes went by, I watched as he pushed back his chair and got up from his seat. "I gotta leave for work, buddy. I'll see you tonight." He chugged down the rest of his coffee and set the empty mug on the table, making a small thud as the ceramic hit the wood. He barely even looked at me as he walked out of the room. Later that night, I was woken up to the sight of my dad, sitting on the edge of my bed. The room was dark, but the dim, yellow glow of the hallway light, creeping through the crack of the slightly ajar bedroom door, was enough to help me make out the serious look on his face, as he sat there, staring down at the floor. Confused, I turned on my side to look at the bedside clock on my nightstand. It read 2:45 a.m. I turned my eyes back to my dad. Is he just getting home from his shift? I asked myself, perplexed. After rubbing some of the sleep off of my eyes, I noticed he was holding his gun. "Dad?" I muttered, my gaze fixed on the Glock in his hand. "You know that I love you, right, kid?" he blurted out, still staring at his feet. That caught me off guard. He and I hardly ever said that to each other. Don't get me wrong, my dad and I had a great relationship. We just weren't good with that kind of stuff. "Yeah," I said as I sat myself up. "I know." Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the living room, almost making me jump out of my skin. It sounded like the front door had been kicked open. Dad turned his head, focusing on the direction of my bedroom door for a few seconds before returning his gaze back down. I watched a mix of fear and sorrow wash over his face as he let out a tired sigh. "I should have known it'd be back," he mumbled under his breath as he shook his head. "What do you mean?" "I'll always be with you, you know," he breathed suddenly, still not looking at me. "Dad, what's going on?" I uttered, as dread started to spread through my body like a wildfire. "No matter where you go, no matter what you decide to do with your life, I'll always be with you." He tightened the grip on his gun as the words escaped his lips. "Please, Dad, just tell me what's going on." My shaky voice pleaded with him. "I love you, son," he said as he finally turned to face me. A serious, yet warm look on his slightly wrinkled face. "I love you too, Dad." It was always hard saying those words to him, but right then they left my lips without me even realizing it, almost like a reflex. At that moment, part of me felt I'd regret not having said it more in the past. "Now, promise me you won't get out of this room until you hear the front door open," he demanded, with a sharp look in his dark brown eyes as he stared straight into mine. "What?" I muttered. "Why?" "Promise me!" He raised his voice, inching himself closer to me. "Why?" I pressed. Usually, raising his voice was all it took for me to do whatever he told me, but not this time. I was too scared. I needed to know what was happening. "Just promise me, son." His voice cracked as he placed his hand on my shoulder. For a second, I thought I was going to see him cry for the first time. I couldn't form any words. The shock of seeing him like that, something I thought was impossible, knocked any form of speech out of me. So, with trembling lips and watery eyes, I just nodded. He sniffled and looked up at the ceiling for a few seconds, as if trying to make imminent tears fall back. With a sigh, he brought his gaze back to me and pulled me close, placing a kiss on my forehead before getting up and trudging towards the door. He stopped right as he reached the door and turned around to look at me. I'm going to do my best to end this here, once and for all. He then turned back around. Standing there, he looked down at his weapon and pressed the release button on the side of his pistol, extracting the magazine. After making sure it was full, he popped it back in and pulled back the chamber, making a satisfying click that echoed through the dark room. Gun in hand, he grabbed the doorknob, and I watched as he twisted it and pulled the door open, then shutting it behind him and leaving me in complete darkness. Sitting in my bed, in that pitch-black room, I waited and listened, my body shaking as I counted the seconds, not knowing what was about to happen. Suddenly, a single gunshot echoed through the house and was quickly followed by the rapid thuds of inhumanely fast footsteps. It sounded like a hammer hitting the hardwood floor 100 times within a second. A wet, munch sound echoed through the walls, accompanied by a loud grunt from my father, which was followed by a loud crash and the splattering of glass. And just like that, it all went silent again. I just sat there, heart racing. I wanted to run, to hide, to scream, but I couldn't move. It was as if my mind was wide awake inside a dormant body. Minutes that felt like hours went by. Sitting there in complete darkness, I waited, building up the courage and telling myself I needed to do something. I needed to see if my dad was okay. Suddenly, the turning of the handle and the creaking of the hinges sliced through the silence of the night, and I watched in horror as the door started to slowly open. The silhouette of a man stood in the doorway, the faint yellow light of the hall coming from behind him. It was hard to tell if the man standing across from me was my dad or an intruder. I sat there, not able to make a sound, waiting and hoping to hear my dad's voice emerge from the figure. Mere seconds seemed to drag on for an eternity. My heart was thumping against my chest, beating so hard I could feel it pulsating in my throat. Out of nowhere, a car slowly drove past the house and its headlights flashed through the gap between my curtains, just enough for me to see the blue of my dad's uniform and the shine of his badge. Letting out a sigh of relief, I felt the tension in my body easing up. Dad, you scared the hell out of me. What's happening? Did someone break in? Whatever relief I felt before was ripped out of my chest as I watched my dad drop to all fours and crawl to a dark corner of the room. My mind started racing. This isn't Dad. This isn't Dad. This man is not my dad. It's amazing how quick our brain can switch from relief to absolute terror. I tried my best to remain still, hoping that, somehow, it was going to keep the man crouched down in the dark corner to my right from hurting me. The whole time, I could feel him staring at me. I could hear his raspy breath just a few feet away from me. Let me tell you, feeling the full effects of adrenaline while your body is frozen with fear is like torture. I felt my heart was going to burst out of my chest at any moment. Somehow, I mustered up the courage to turn my head in the direction of the man. As soon as I did, he started to slowly rise himself up. The loud cracking of bones echoed through the room as he did so. A cold, numb feeling sank in the pit of my stomach. He was now standing up. At that moment, the only thing I could think of was the lamp on the bedside table. I needed to see him. To see it. Carefully, I reached out for the lamp next to me and with a pull of the cord, the whole room was bathed in an orange shade of light. Staring at the man, my eyes went so wide they could have popped out of my skull. What I saw made my heart sink. He wasn't just wearing my dad's uniform. He was also wearing my dad's face. That man, that thing, whatever it was, it had carved my dad's face off and was wearing it like a damn mask. Blood was still dripping from it, running down the man's neck and streaking the blue of the uniform. I just sat there, terrified, eyes bulging as the man stood in the corner, watching me. Through the holes where my dad's eyes used to be, I could see how lifeless the ones that replaced them were. The man tilted his head as he stared at me, almost as if he was admiring the sight in front of him. I don't even know how long he stood there. An hour? Maybe 2? Out of nowhere, he dropped on all fours again and crawled out of the room with inhumane speed, making loud thuds as his hands and feet hit the floor. Even after he left, I still sat there for what must have been hours, still frozen. Eventually, I finally gathered the courage to go look. With my bare feet pressing against the cold hardwood floor, I slowly stepped my way towards the, now wide open, door of my bedroom. As I entered the living room, my eyes scanned the place in search of my dad, but he wasn't there. His gun was on the floor, next to a pile of glass shards and the frame of the broken coffee table. There was a huge trail of blood leading from it towards the wide open front door. I just stood there for a while, staring into nothing. The curtains swayed as the wind entered the house through the open door. After a while, I don't even know how long, I was finally able to snap out of it and call 911. After loads of questions, most of which I didn't have the answers to, they promised me they would catch whoever did this. They said my dad was one of them, and that they wouldn't rest until they caught the bastard. It's been 20 years. They never did. I lived with my Aunt Gemma until I turned 18. I went to college, got a business degree, and did well for myself. I'm 36 now. Same age my dad was when it happened. After all this time, I never really understood what happened to my dad. For most of my life, I avoided the topic like the plague. However, on my 36th birthday, my Aunt Gemma called me to congratulate me. But as we were talking, she said the strangest thing. "Oh, sweetie, and don't you worry about it. It was just an awful coincidence," her voice said through the phone. "What are you talking about, Aunt Gemma?" I replied, confused. "You know, the whole thing with your father and grandfather and turning 36. It was just a freaky and horrible coincidence." "Aunt Gemma, what do you mean? What happened to Grandpa? Your father never told you?" "No, he didn't." "Oh, then it's better this way, sweetie. I don't want to worry you over nothing." I tried my best to get her to explain, but she refused, and I ended up dropping the subject. How stupid I was. Anyways, it's been 2 months since I had that conversation with my aunt. The reason I'm telling you all of this is because about an hour ago, I looked through the window in my office at home, and I saw someone standing by the curb, under the streetlight in front of my house. They were wearing a hoodie, which made it hard to see who they were. I was finally able to see their face when the person looked up at me. It looked like my dad. Good evening, guys, ghouls, and girls, and thank you so much for tuning in to the latest story. Thank you for your patience while I've been slightly MIA. I got married and I have been sick ever since, so I am back onto my semi-regular schedule of streaming and uploading, so please stay tuned for the next one. Please feel free to connect with me on any of the social media platforms linked in my link tree. I also have a Discord server that you can join if you wish to do so. Otherwise, I'll just catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Stay spooky.